Welcome back to another edition of the Balas and Skene Show, the Wolverine.com podcast. My name is Chris Balas. With me, Doug Skene, Michigan five-time Big Ten champion and former New England Patriot under Bill Parcells. That's a big deal, man. You're kind of a big deal. So, yeah.
Patriots not doing so well these days, are they?
No, it's because you retired. All right, we're going to talk first about Gametime here. Guys, I want to talk about a way to get tickets here. You know what? I went on. I was a first-time user to Gametime. Wanted to get some Detroit Lions tickets for the Atlanta Falcons, and they gave me $20 off. I said, I'll try it. Easiest experience buying tickets that I've ever had at Gametime. So fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. Killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. Stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Actually, we went on, and I saw Skene when we were there that they had dropped dramatically even after we were in our seats. And I'm like, man, I'm going to wait until even later next time. So, but you know what? It was fantastic. And it's forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. That's 110%. So buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Wolverine. That's Wolverine for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, though, and redeem the code Wolverine for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And speaking of the Lions, Skene, you know what? This is a Michigan podcast, obviously, but we like to talk about guys who play in the pros. And I got my Lions gear on today. I am completely and 100% drinking the Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid.
You still have some of that face paint on from yesterday.
I got the face paint. I should have, because I'm so damn tired from those damn night games. An hour and a half of sleep, man, before we went to the airport at 6 a.m. in Minneapolis. But it was great. I was howling at the moon out there with Jansen and Karsh on Friday night in Minneapolis and meeting some subscribers. It was fantastic. The owner of Max Acadian in Saline. Have you ever been there?
No.
Max Acadian Seafood. We're going to go there, you and me and Tracy. Fantastic restaurant. And there's Mac. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. I didn't. Anyway, long story short, we had a hell of a time. But then I come home and I had to stay up to watch the Lions. And Aidan Hutchinson is an absolute stud. I remember talking to Chris Hutchinson and you and Chris Hutchinson saying, Skene, do you think my kid's good enough to play for Michigan? I think that question has been answered. What a freaking stud.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this young man is going to be a superstar. I don't know what else to say. It ain't just him. Obviously, his sisters are extremely talented too. So Chris and Melissa have been blessed with very talented children.
Wait a minute. What positions do they play?
Yeah, well, one of them's an incredible singer, and the other one is a beauty pageant queen. So it's
you had my hopes up, man. I thought maybe one was going to be a linebacker and one was going to be a receiver.
I don't think they need him. Nope, I don't think.
No, not anymore.
We got one seems to be doing pretty good out there.
Yeah, because the Lions are going to the Super Bowl, baby.
Well. Hey, pump the brakes, Balas. Pump the brakes.
Okay, I got to say this, though. The best pick, one of the best picks that they've ever made, and they waited 10 seconds to make it, and that's when I knew that this franchise was starting to get it. You see a guy that never takes a playoff, took one hell of a hit after an unbelievable interception with one hand. I mean, do you remember Hutch when he was a little kid? Did you ever meet Aidan when he was younger?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and he's a tall, little skinny, scrawny kid, and you know, I never really saw him play football until some high school stuff. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that looks like a taller version of his dad.
Yeah.
Who plays just as hard. And then, you know, you mix in time and physical development. And, you know, you got to remember, Aiden's 6'6". Kid's like, he's my height. Yeah. He's a tall, long kid, and he's put on the strength. But then you combine that with the incredible motor and the desire, and there is no gear that's not 100%.
Yeah.
For his dad at Michigan, and I was just telling a friend, we were watching the Lions game, and he was asking me about Aidan, and I was like, you know, he's like his dad except bigger, and you know, longer.
How'd that happen?
Longer arms. Well, I've said this before. Hutch, Chris is the runt of the family. His brothers are huge people. And these are big human beings, and Chris was the runt at only 6'3".
Yeah.
But he obviously made up for it by becoming an All-American at Michigan, and Aidan got some of those blessed genetics to be tall and long arms, and you combine the internal DNA of never having a low gear, and here you go. You get an NFL superstar. It's
Yeah,
awesome to watch.
he is a superstar. It's fantastic, and I can't tell you how many times he's been held. You must be really proud of those offensive linemen holding all the time, holding him and grabbing him and tackling him. Ridiculous.
I
Come
know.
on,
Well,
NFL.
listen, man, it's just part of the deal. That's just
Yeah, it's just part of the deal.
it's
That
part
poor
of the
kid.
deal.
I tell you what, that kid would probably have 10 sacks already, and I'm not bullshitting.
But he's got,
Any
here's NFL quarterbacking across the league for many years now, right?
Yeah,
Preserve your offense, preserve your quarterback by getting rid of the football in 3 seconds or less.
yeah,
And so it's even harder nowadays for guys to get to the quarterback. But so that's why I think that the statistic that's tracked now of pressures is so important. If
yeah,
you can make a quarterback uncomfortable and have him move around and have to find somewhere to throw when he doesn't really, he's not really where he wants to be, sometimes those things can add up to be just as impactful as a sack. It doesn't look the same because you don't have the actual loss of yardage, but pressures are incredibly important.
yeah.
That's why, I talk about that in our weekly show here, Balas. We look at Michigan's offensive line. How many pressures are we giving up and
Mhm.
these kind of things? Because it's important.
It
And
is.
so as long as Hutch and the rest of that defensive front for the Lions can continue to pressure quarterbacks, hit them even after they throw the football, and then throw in a couple sacks per game, you're doing all the right things. You're disrupting the quarterback's comfort level.
And he's doing that constantly. Hutchinson is forcing him out of the pocket and everything else. And let's talk about another guy who's doing that from the interior for Michigan now. Switching gears, and we're going to start on the defensive line this week because I got to tell you, Mason Graham, and I've been singing his praises, and people are starting to wonder, you know what? Okay, is it getting a little weird here with Balas's infatuation with Mason Graham? But I talked to his dad last year because I said I have never seen a better true freshman defensive tackle than this kid at Michigan, and that was not hyperbole. A kid that had that kind of an impact, and now we're starting to see him take it to another level. And I'm thinking going into that game on Saturday night, they wanted to get him a few reps to see how he played with this big club on his hand, because obviously hands are so important on the interior, right?
Yeah.
And instead, this kid comes in with a swim move and he's throwing this big club around like something out of Game of Thrones or something like that on his hand and busting through double teams. Talk about the game he had and how disruptive and how dominant a dominant defensive tackle can completely change the game, because that's exactly what he did on Saturday night.
Well, and let's not minimize for a second. Let's just talk about how difficult it is to play in the interior, because you're always playing against two guys, right? This, in the position that Mason plays, he's either over the nose, he's over the center, or over a guard. He's always drawing some kind of double team, even if for a moment. So he's got to deal with a guard or center coming at him, and maybe if he's playing a wide three, you got tackles as well. And so it's a really difficult position to play because of the angles that his opponents, the offensive line, have on him. And so his handwork is just like anybody in the middle there. It's incredibly important. So take one of your hands away, right? If I just take your hand, Balas, your left hand or right hand, and wrap it up in a club, and you can't functionally use your fingers and your thumbs, your day is going to be really uncomfortable. But if your livelihood and your performance is dependent on how well you can use both of your hands, and I take one of them away, like he's got with this club on his hand,
Yeah, it'd be
it's
hard.
It's, I guess what I'm saying, it's unbelievable how effective the kid was missing one of his hands. It reminded me of all the players I've ever watched, going all the way back to when Everett did it years ago. He switched hands because he had an incident with his fingertips there, and so I don't know how guys can do it and remain as effective as they were. And
Yeah.
so for Graham to do that against Minnesota and do some swim moves and make some changes in the way he plays, it obviously freaked out the Minnesota offensive line. They didn't have an answer for him because he's in the making in the gaps and in the backfield making tackles for losses. It's like, wow, this kid's really, really good and obviously really, really tough.
Yeah.
Because it's really, really difficult to do things in life in general, let alone play a game that requires you use these so much.
Yeah, and we're talking Jefferson from Fast Times at Ridgemont High stuff here. I mean, this guy is leaping over guys. He got there was some late help, and the guy blocked him right into the quarterback, and the center got some late help, and he just absolutely crushed that kid. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like this. And Mozzie Smith was fantastic, first round pick. I can go back to Chris Hutchinson. I can go back to guys like that, and I can single out a ton of guys. Maurice Hurst, obviously, but in terms of stopping the run and now starting to get some pressure. Mason Graham is taking his game to another level. I love watching him play. Congratulations to them, and a great kid to boot. So a lot
Graham
of fun.
does a great job. Jenkins in there
Yeah.
continues to disrupt things. I thought Rayshon Benny really made some plays in there too, and
Okay.
occupying offensive linemen as well. Just watching those interior defensive linemen and all of them, I'm like, man, this Minnesota offensive line is just got to be looking at each other like, what do we do with this group? They're
Right.
all, they're all really athletic guys moving around. But I thought as a group, obviously Graham stood out because of the return with the injury. But those other guys in there, Jenkins, obviously we know, but Rayshon's one of these kids that I thought would have a breakout year coming into the season, and I saw him make some plays in there, and he looks pretty good too. And that's a big
Good.
dude running around in there and making plays and getting out on the edge, pursuing the ball. And so the Michigan defensive line, I think we all have these dreams of the years where Hutch and Ajabo would come off the end and torture guys, and that was like ideal, perfect conditions for those two in that season a few years back. But this group is doing it in different ways. We may not be taking offensive tackles and throwing them into the quarterback like Hutch did against Ohio State his last game, but they're just as effective in other ways.
Yeah, and Josiah Stewart starting to get there. He was actually the defensive player of the week in the Big Ten 2 weeks ago. I think he had another sack on Saturday, and he's starting to get to the quarterback. This kid from Coastal Carolina back next year. Everybody laments what they lose next year, and I'd like to focus on what they bring back. And when I look at Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham and Josiah Stewart, they're going to do the one-year fund. Braden McGregor, I don't think it was credited for a tackle, but he had 3 pass breakups at the line of scrimmage. This kid has been
That's his
disruptive
specialty
too.
now, Balas.
It is, absolutely. And it's every bit as good
Yes.
as, you know what, maybe not a sack, but you get him off the field, you get another down.
Well, and again, the net impact on the quarterback. So
Yes.
McGregor has done an outstanding job of reading some eyeballs and positioning himself. Again, a really tall, long guy. And now quarterbacks are looking at him. If I'm the quarterback and I'm looking over to my right and I know my route that I want to throw to is over here on my right, and I look over here and I see 17 and he's already batted down one of the footballs or maybe 2 of them. Now it's like, all right, I may have to move to get around him before I can even throw the route I want. And so that has an impact on a quarterback as well. So they all have their specialties. McGregor is really good at getting his hands up and disrupting. And I would say this, almost all the defensive front guys that get into the backfield against these quarterbacks that we're playing, they're doing an outstanding job of getting their hands up and causing pass lane disruptions or vision problems for a quarterback.
Yeah.
And it's a tiny little thing that you coach little kids when they first start playing the game. And a lot of guys don't do it anymore. It's a lost art in some ways, and it's really cool to see the Michigan defense bringing it back.
And Mike Elston is one of the reasons for that. This guy is an absolute stud. I remember when we broke the news the night before that, hey, Mike Elston, keep an eye out on this as a potential defensive line hire. Notre Dame fans roasted me. They absolutely killed me. And I said, well, we got a pretty good source here on this one, and maybe somebody connected to the Michigan program that played with him and said, don't give it away yet, but they got a chance. What a steal that was. Mike Elston is an absolute stud and joins an absolute stud coaching staff. So let me talk about Birddogs here for a second. Skene, I got to get you some shorts here and some of these golf pants, most comfortable, literally, shorts that I have ever worn. And I'm not just saying that because they are paying us to. They've got a built-in liner, stretch khaki shorts, birddogs.com. That are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh, which is great for you and me, Skene, and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. I'm telling you, if I had a dime for every girl that commented on my butt in these, I wouldn't have anything. But still, they do a really good job of slimming you down. They fit way better than regular shorts. They're made of stiff, restricting cotton. They fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches so you get a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And this, I can attest to being absolutely true. Uses anti-stink sweat, which is great for you, Skene. Wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. I've got a pair of shorts. I got a pair of pants that they sent me that are incredible golf pants, and just fantastic. So I have a hard time finding golf pants, Skene, that fit. They sent them to me sight unseen without trying them on, and they are perfect. So go to birddogs.com/Wolverine or enter promo code Wolverine for a free Hydro Flask style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/Wolverine or promo code Wolverine for a free Hydro Flask style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off, we promise you. So, all right, Skene, back to Michigan football here. I will say this about the Minnesota offensive line. They were physical. There were times early in that game, we were texting during the game as we do when Chris Stapleton, the former mullet punter, gets all scared about how the game's going. And he's like, oh, no, Doug, what's happening? You know, and then he's going to kill us for that. Kill me for that. But anyway, he says, why are they running the ball so well? And you said they were just winning some of their one-on-one matchups, and they were. But what they were doing was they were running that stretch play, and they were patient, waiting to tell on their back, wait. And but tell us what was going on early in that game for people who were watching.
Minnesota's offensive line was textbook executing against our defensive front and some of those better runs. They were running when you say is a stretch play, it's like a zone blocking scheme where guys are getting on an edge, and you got the next guy. So if I'm the playing right guard, and we saw this in the game Saturday night, I get on the edge of the defensive lineman, the center comes to my inside hip, and together now we've got control of a defensive lineman, and both of our eyeballs are on that next linebacker. If the linebacker comes over the top, I'm going to slide off and get him, and the center is going to take over this block that I just left. And then that running back is watching all of this happen. And he's patient. And when he sees that second level move to go get that linebacker, then he makes the crease move off of my butt cheek, and he's gone for a first down. Yeah. It was just basic blocking. That's all they were doing. So when I sent that text message that Minnesota's offensive line on these successful plays, they're just blocking us. Simple. Yeah. They're just blocking us. And so the game went on, and all of a sudden the defensive line and the linebackers did a better job of controlling that double team fit that the Minnesota offensive line was trying to get to with success early in the football game. Michigan started jumping some gaps and started making some slants, and that's really difficult when you try to do that zone stuff. And it changes the angles and the preferred angles that offensive linemen like to take, because now you're unsure, is he going to jump the gap this way? And it just causes problems. And Michigan started to fix those things, and all of a sudden they can't run the football.
Yeah, and Jim Harbaugh said that they moved their edge out over this as a 6 technique, which means what? He's across from the tight end, right?
Yeah, he's out past the tackle, over in the shoulder of the tight end now, and so that changes the ability of the width that they can get. And then you have a better, stronger fill linebacker, and then a more gapping, disrupting defensive lineman. It just makes for serious problems in teams that like to zone you.
Yeah, and that is a great coaching move, and not surprising to me when you got guys like Elston and Jesse Minter. Harbaugh did say he went over to the defense at halftime to see what he was saying. He says, yeah, that sounds good to me. And sure enough, and those backs were waiting. They wanted to get some cutbacks too. You could see, okay, we're going to cut this back. And it was there a couple of times, and give them credit, and it's funny because we say, oh my God, they're gashing them. And then you look at the final stats and they finished with 117 yards, which isn't terrible. And I think they had 7 total yards in the third quarter. Nobody has scored on Michigan in the third quarter, I believe, this year if I'm not mistaken.
As good as the statistics are for Michigan's defense, I think us fans and Stapleton and you and I, and we sit there and we go, oh my gosh, someone's having success. Well, here's a news flash, everybody. I know this is controversial. The other teams have some players on their team too, and they can make football plays. The kid, there's guys that make good plays, and they make good blocks, and they may get a few first downs. It's not time to panic. You just wait and see how we adjust. I mean, these are Division I football guys that are pretty well coached as well. Row the boat guys had some success up there over the years, and so I'm not going to freak out when someone creases us for a few first downs. Now, if they go 80 yards and do it a few times in a row, that's a different story. But we haven't seen that yet, so there's no reason to panic.
Did you hear that, Stapleton? So stop blowing up our phones during games with
relax. Right? Take a deep breath.
Stapes. All right, there you Oh, God, too good. We're going to have him on the show, by the way. This guy would be a fantastic addition for one of our shows, and I keep telling them we're going to do that. He as much as we give him shit, he knows a lot about football. This guy probably could have played linebacker or something. He was not your typical kicker / punter. So anyway, we love you, Stapes. All right, let's talk about the Michigan offensive line here. And, Jim Harbaugh said something else that was pretty interesting. He said, the last 2 years are not the norm when it comes to being able to run the ball. And, of course, every play is drawn up, right? Hey, we're going to score a touchdown. You block him, we double team him, you do this, and this thing's going to go for 6. It doesn't work that way. Part of the reason, obviously, like you said, is because other teams have good players that are maybe going to get off a block or things aren't going to go to perfection. But, the success they had running the ball the last couple of years was insane. So we aren't seeing the big 50, 60, 70, 85-yard, 75-yard runs that we saw last year, but maybe that's more normal than usual. They're still running the ball okay. And you know what? They're starting to play to their strengths a little bit more, which is J.J. McCarthy in play action. He's been fantastic, and using the quarterback a little bit more to run. So what are you seeing from the offensive line? Are you okay with them? I like Henderson at left tackle.
Yep.
I think they are moving people, and
Yep.
I think they did just fine. They didn't get a ton of carries for their backs, but I thought the running game they had very few inefficient runs, even though they only ran the ball like 20 times with their backs.
I think that this is, at this point in the football season now, we're at the point now where we kind of talked about it preseason. We said, what's Michigan got to do to take this thing to the next level and compete in the playoffs? And I said many, many times, we have to have a more dynamic, more developed passing attack. I think that's what this looks like. The Michigan offensive line is getting better week by week. My little stats that I keep track of this week, Balas, we had 3 tackles for losses. That included, I think, 2 of them in the fourth quarter with the second string unit. So runs for no gain, only 2 in the whole football game. QB pressures, only 2 on the offensive line. Only 2 QB pressures, Balas. How many times did the opposing team touch our quarterback? That's the hits, right? And when I mean touch, I mean anything from a light arm check to a drilling afterwards. Only 2 in this football game. 2 weeks ago against Rutgers, they had 7.
Right.
Last week against Nebraska, 3. They're getting better, and no sacks allowed in this football game. So that performance-wise, for the little things that aren't statistically tracked all that well, an outstanding game by this offensive line. And I think the consistency of Ladarius at left and Barnhart at right, I think this is the combination. I've said that now for a couple weeks. Ladarius looked much better in pass pro this week than he did last week. His one-on-ones, he was really good. And so I like the formations. I like the lineup. And I think that what JJ brings to the table and the ability to throw this football around and back defenses off, and if they want to play that run heavy, then fine, we'll throw it. And we're not going to force things. Last year, I think the luxury was you can line up here and we're still going to run 46, 47G and variations of it. And we're still going to run for 240 yards. I don't think he's doing that as much this year because he has the luxury of this stud quarterback and this wide receiver group that's getting better and better and better, and the tight ends, and you got 2 backs. I think this looks like the balanced offense that we kind of hope to see, and it just gets better and better and better in the running game and the passing game, and I think this is what we want.
Yeah, I think so too. And they don't know what's coming. And if you're sitting there and what Jim Harbaugh said too, he said, I think that a lot of teams now in the pros and in college, they're playing to stop the run even more. And especially against Michigan, that's true. Saying, okay, let's see if this kid can beat us. Well, this kid's beating you. And he's doing it in so many different ways. And you can tell that he's a student of the game. He knows, you always talk about there's one guy, if they're bringing more than the offensive line and the backs and the tight ends can handle, then it's on the quarterback to pick that guy up. I saw him do that with a corner blitz. And you know what? He's calling out, okay, this guy might be coming, before the snap. And if he's coming, he sees him. So he's really recognizing that, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the next level stuff. The broadcasters, I think Blackledge was doing the game, is talking about this is 400, 500 level, college level, quarterback progressions now. And you look and you see, even if a defender is not going to show it with a step, you use your cadence to get a defender to show what he's going to do. You just look at alignment variations and you can see if your slot is over here and that guy's got a really heavy inside leverage, he's a threat.
Yeah.
And your offensive tackle then looks out there and goes, okay, now we can maybe change protections. This is where you have a veteran quarterback get to. And now as a coaching staff, you can do all kinds of things because you don't have to worry about him recognizing and reacting to these things.
Yeah.
Because he is seeing it and he is making changes and he is making, process changes to the way he's going to take that football and how fast he's going to get rid of it. The blitz is coming off the edge. All right, here we go. I'm going to get it over. I'm going to change the play and go left, or I'm going to throw it over your head because you're going to, the safety's got to come up and cover that guy when you come on to blitz. So, or the linebacker, whoever it is. These are the things that coaches aspire to get to have a kid back there running your offense where you go, all right, well, we got this because
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to explain these differences because he already knows.
Yeah, he's a stud. And watching him run, throwing his shoulder into a guy, stiff arming a guy, there's the hockey player in him. And again, I'd rather see him doing that against Penn State, Ohio State, and stuff like that. But he's a tough guy. This is not a China Doll quarterback out there. This kid, he's put on some good weight, and you can see he takes a hit. He took a hit. What was it, the Rutgers game, or
he's taken a few. He's taken a few ballasts, and as much as it's fun, we can go like, yeah, our quarterback's got some grit, and I like it too. As a lineman, I've said this before: when your quarterback drops a shoulder and runs over somebody, it's awesome. We get excited. Just let's take it easy, JJ.
Right.
The sideline is okay too. We'll get you back in the huddle, and you can make another play. Can't get this kid hurt. He can't get hurt.
I gotcha. Yeah, there's absolutely truth to that. Although I will say that Jack Tuttle has looked pretty good in backup play the last couple of weeks, and so is the backup line. Yeah. And that's what I'm excited about, because the first few weeks it seemed like they were like, oh, well, we'll get a few snaps here. Now they're going out there and playing with some actual emotion. Greg Crippen had a block at center that I noticed in mop-up duty, and those guys played really well too. And that's what you want to see. You want to see the guys that are going to be in there next playing with that same chip. I remember in the 70s and the 80s, and you guys, when you'd get in there and you're making the most of your opportunity, you're like, screw it, man. I want to, you know what, if I'm only going to get in there for 10 plays at the end of the game, I want them to be good and look good on film and let these guys know that I can play too. And these guys are doing that.
Yeah, they did that, and you get in there, you want to get some helmet stickers for individual performance as well on your helmet there, and so that second string offense comes in with that second string quarterback, who, by the way, Tuttle's got some wheels too. He's got some speed of his own that I think people may not realize. But that offensive line comes in, and you think, okay, how much of a drop off are we going to see here? Are we going to see a sloppy mess, or is this pretty tightly operated unit here? And it was the latter.
Yeah,
pretty good performance by this backup crew, and a lot of those guys have seen time this year because of the games we played against these opponents, and so the depth, right, Balas? Well, I've said for years, you have to have a stud 5.
Yep.
And you really need to have a stud 7 because someone's going to get dinged up. But if good grief, if you can have a stud 10 where you got a full unit front and back and you don't have any drop off, I think we're pretty dang close to that right now with Al-Hadi, with all his experience.
Yep.
Crippen looks good at the center position. Trente comes in there, and Trente's played a lot of football, and he moves people off the line of scrimmage. It's like, man, this group has really got it going on, and I feel really comfortable. In the unfortunate event that we do have an injury out there, we should have no drop off.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen where they're going to, hopefully that we knock on wood. So let's talk about, I want to talk to you about Nugent. How good has he been? Everybody's asking me to compare him to Oluwatimi. I haven't been able to break it down, but what I do see from a kid is a guy who A, busts his ass on every play, and B, seems to be doing what's asked of him in terms of, his assignments, getting people where they're supposed to be, and holding his own there, at least in the trenches.
I think he's doing more than holding his own. I don't know that I'm ready to say he's as good as Oluwatimi was a year ago, because he had an outstanding season. And let's go back a couple of years. Vastardis is Nugent playing as good as Vastardis is right now? I think he's pretty close. Early in the year, I had a couple criticisms of him because I felt like he was just position blocking there in the middle of a defensive line or jumping on someone's hip, and that takes away a running lane by your back at times. You always want to see movement. You need to take a defensive lineman and move him back off the line of scrimmage a yard before you start playing positional games. And I think he's getting better at that. He's physically not as tall and as long as Oluwatimi. He's just not as big of a guy. But that doesn't mean you can't be just as effective. Michigan's had big, tall, long centers like Oluwatimi all the way back to Steve Everett. And then we have had other guys that are a little bit shorter. What I always say is the gold standard of like the Jeff Saturday type, really, really effective. And I put Nugent in that category of the guy who's really effective, even though he's not 6'5".
Right. Yeah. And there's no question. He's moving people and getting underneath people. I love it. So it's been fun to watch. I want to ask you about Kalel Mullings, man, because this is a kid who, since he moved from linebacker and now has been concentrating on that position, this kid's a load. This kid's 239 pounds, but he can move. And now he's starting to show that vision, and he's breaking tackles, and he's like, stop me, because he is really getting, when he gets moving and he's got some better acceleration than I thought, this kid could be a legit Big Ten back.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and I think he's forcing this coaching staff to put him on the football
They
field. I mean,
are.
we
He
got
is.
you got the 2 other studs that how do you get these guys the ball? Corum and Edwards, and now all of a sudden this other third back comes in here, Mullins. It's like, how are we supposed to do this? You have to get this kid some touches
Yeah.
because he presents a different style, and you're absolutely right, Balas. He's showing a little bit better vision now, a little patience with a cut, but then when the impact happens and the defender comes up to make a tackle, it looks like a punishing experience for that defender because kid's always falling forward and he's driving his legs through contact.
Yeah.
And that's what you ask for that from any back, right? But he
Yeah.
seems to have a skill set that he's been blessed with physically where it looks really uncomfortable to have to
Yeah.
tackle this dude.
Yeah, and I want you to go back and watch the touchdown pass to Colston Loveland. They are sending a linebacker, and I want you to listen to the collision. I'm getting weepy here just thinking about this, okay? Listen to the collision at the line. This kid, it's like hitting a brick wall because
Yeah.
Kalel Mullings stands this kid up, and you could hear the pads from the press box through the glass, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And then I went to watch it on film immediately. That was the first thing I did on an hour and a half sleep on Monday morning or Sunday morning at the airport. I'm like, I need to hear if this was as loud as I thought it was. And bam, this kid is, Mike Hart, of course, his backs are gonna do that in pass protection because that's what he did. But boy, these guys are getting it done there too, aren't they?
It's a requirement.
Yes.
And Mike Hart did it very, very well for a guy of his stature, right? Not the
For anybody's stature,
but
frankly.
that and this is the hard part, right? I remember years ago being at Michigan, one of Michigan's practices when Freddie Jackson was coaching the running backs and just talking about blocking. And I remember him saying, Skene, we recruit all these kids and they can all run with the football. They're all incredible athletes, but not all of them want to block. And it's my job to teach them how to do it and to want to do it. And that is the difference between taking a kid that can run the ball all day long, but is useless on the field. And when it comes to pass protection and picking up a big, strong, blitzing linebacker, you look what happened over all these years. And now you got Mike Hart teaching these guys how to do it. It is awesome.
Yeah.
And as an
Really is.
offensive lineman, when you see a flash of color come around, that's the back's guy. And then you can hear it behind your helmet. You hear the pop that you're discussing. You're like, yeah, he's one of us, right?
Yeah.
That back is one of us. We love this guy because
Yeah.
he's mixing. He's willing to stick his nose in there and mix it up. So
Yeah.
it's awesome to watch. It galvanizes that huddle a little bit more, and it makes it even more fun to participate in.
Yep. Last thing I want to talk about is the tight ends who the first game did not live up to standards, and ever since then have been absolute studs. Max Bredesen has taken his game to another level, and I made it a point to watch every play that he was out there. This kid I think it was the reverse, was running a guy downfield about 15 yards and absolutely plowing him. And absolutely dragging him with him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So and we are talking about a group that has improved dramatically. AJ Barner, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Colston Loveland's getting better. These guys are starting to play at a really high level as well.
Well, I think this is part of the natural progression of a football season. And we talked about in the preseason here in the first couple games where it looked a little clunky and it wasn't real clean. And the way college practices are structured now, Balas, and the limitations of a live football that you're allowed to practice in the NCAA across the country, it limits your ability to get this quality amount of snaps. And so now here we are mid-season, and it makes sense to me now that guys are figuring out what game speed looks like and game violence looks like versus practice stuff. And that's what you're seeing, the natural progression. And credit to the coach that's taking care of this group here, and the way that this group is coming together, and they're becoming part of this bigger bully group of just torturing people, and it's obviously fun to watch.
It's amazing to watch, and it's been a blast. So kudos to their coaches. It's been a lot of fun, and I got to tell you, there's a kid, Holden Niemi. I know his mother in Dexter, Michigan. He had 5 catches for 196 yards the other night against Monroe as a true freshman, 14 years old.
Wow.
He is 6'4", 210 pounds, runs a 4.6 40. Grant Newsom started following him on Twitter, after this game. But then I go and watch the blocking, and he is absolutely burying people. I'm going to send you his film. We're going to talk a little bit about him next week, just because this kid is in my backyard. And you get that sense of, you know what? Hey, I know this guy, man. I want this guy to succeed. Loves Michigan. And but this kid, I've been watching him play baseball. He's a two sports star. you can't teach size like that. But I want you
Well,
to see the nastiness.
whoever's coaching them there at the high school levels
Yes.
must doing a good
Yeah.
job, because that what you just described there, right? High school kids that are now latching onto people, taking people downfield and dumping them on their backside and rubbing their
Yeah.
belt buckle on their nose. That
Yes.
doesn't happen a lot, Balas. They're
Yeah.
really trying to take that out of the game. And you
Yeah.
see it. I've watched high school games and they'll throw a flag on a kid for doing that.
Right.
When I used to coach high school kids, I had a guy throw a flag on one of my offensive linemen that did that in a scrimmage. And I looked at the official. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Did he hold on that play?" He goes, "No, no, his hands were inside, looked pretty good." I said, "What was the foul?" He's like, "Well, it was just unnecessary roughness there, coach. We didn't need that." I said, "All right, one more question for you. Is this still football that we're playing
Right.
out here?" And the guy looked at me and he goes, "Yeah, I understand your point. It was a good block, right?" And it's
Yeah.
just like, but you have to teach this to kids because they're, as they should be. We should be gentlemen off the field. But when you step inside the white lines, you turn into a maniac that wants to
Yes.
destroy people. And so it's fun and reassuring to hear these young kids in high school doing this. And of course, when we watch Michigan play, it's even more fun to see it happen.
Yeah.
It's not as common in the NFL, because guys want to preserve their careers a little bit longer, and I understand that. But it's just awesome to
Yeah,
watch.
and I'm going to send you the film. We'll talk about it next week. But he's Doug Skene, Michigan's 5-time Big Ten champion. And Skene, I appreciate it. Birddogs, folks. Remember, Birddogs, fantastic. And Gametime, better than StubHub for me, not even close. And we will talk to you next week. Thanks, Doug.
All right, go blue.